In 2019, at Diddy's 50th birthday party in New York, a photographer caught Jay-Z on the dance floor. He was dancing with Beyoncé. Another guest got too close with a phone camera, and Jay-Z reached across and took it directly out of the man's hands. The moment made headlines because of what it said about privacy and proximity and what happens when you get too close to people operating at that level. But the watch community noticed something else in the footage. Strapped to Jay-Z's left wrist, catching the light as his arm moved, was a Patek Philippe Grandmaster chime, reference 6300G, in white gold. A watch with 20 complications, a reversible case with 2 separate dials, 5 chiming functions, including a grande sonnerie that strikes the hours and quarter hours automatically, a perpetual calendar accurate until the year 2100, a piece that retailed when it was first released in 2016 for approximately $2.2 million. That same month, a unique stainless steel version of the same reference sold at the Only Watch charity auction in Geneva for $31 million, making it the most expensive wristwatch ever sold at auction in human history. Jay-Z wore his to a birthday party on a dance floor and made the news for grabbing a phone. Nobody wrote a single headline about the watch. The collector community spent 3 days talking about nothing else. We are going to go through his entire collection, piece by piece, explain exactly what each watch is, what it costs, what it does, and why the man born Sean Corey Carter in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, has assembled one of the most technically serious watch collections ever documented on a public figure's wrist. Sean Carter grew up with nothing. He sold drugs in the Marcy Houses projects in Brooklyn because the alternative was not a viable option. He watched his father leave when he was 11 years old. He was shot at 3 times before he turned 20. By the time he turned 30, he had built a record label. By 40, he was a billionaire. The watches arrived in direct proportion to the money, which is not unusual for men who spent their early years without any. What is unusual is what Jay-Z chose to buy when he had the resources to buy anything. There is a version of the celebrity watch collector that accumulates visual spectacle, brands chosen for recognizability and price signal, pieces selected because they communicate wealth to people in a room who might not otherwise understand it. Jay-Z does not collect that way. His collection is technically specific. The pieces he gravitates toward are the ones the horological community studies, not the ones the gossip press notices. The fact that his most important piece is one of the most complicated mechanical wristwatches ever built, not one of the most visually obvious, tells you something about how seriously he is engaged with this subject over the course of 2 decades. He did not build a watch collection as a byproduct of wealth. He built one as a student of the craft. And the curriculum he chose is one of the most demanding available to any collector operating at any price level anywhere in the world. The centerpiece, the piece that defines the collection and separates it from anything any other musician in the world has assembled, is the Patek Philippe Grandmaster chime, reference 6300G. Patek Philippe introduced the original Grandmaster chime in 2014 on the occasion of the manufacturer's 175th anniversary. They produced 7 examples in yellow gold. It was not a watch built to a commercial specification. It was a demonstration of what the most storied watchmaker in Geneva could accomplish when the brief was simply to make the most complicated thing they had ever made, without constraint of practicality, marketability, or precedent. The result contained 20 complications. 5 of them are acoustic functions, chiming mechanisms that produce sound on demand or automatically, and 2 of those 5 represent patented world premieres that no other watchmaker had achieved before Patek. The Grande Sonnerie strikes the hours and quarter hours in passing, automatically, without the wearer doing anything. The Petite Sonnerie strikes the hours only. The minute repeater strikes the time on demand to the minute. The alarm sounds at a preset time. The date repeater, one of the 2 patented premieres, sounds the date on demand. The movement driving all 20 complications contains 1,366 individual parts. It took Patek's engineers 8 years to develop from the initial brief to the finished piece. When the reference 6300G in white gold entered the regular collection in 2016, it was listed at approximately $2.2 million. To acquire one, you did not simply present money. Patek Philippe requires prospective buyers of major complications to apply through a formal process. The application includes questions about the applicant's relationship with watchmaking, their existing collection, their history with the brand, and, reportedly, their answer to the question of what their greatest accomplishment while wearing a Patek Philippe has been. Jay-Z owns one. He wore it to Diddy's birthday party. He wore it to the 65th Grammy Awards in 2023. He wore it to LeBron James's birthday party. He wore it to the 2026 Met Gala. He is on record as one of the very small number of human beings on Earth who qualified to purchase it, which is a different kind of status signal from anything a more visually obvious watch could send. The Grandmaster Chime does not announce itself to people who have not done the reading. It announces itself exclusively to the people who have. The Patek Philippe collection extends considerably beyond the Grandmaster Chime, and each piece in it represents a specific choice rather than a general acquisition of the brand's most recognizable names. Jay-Z has been photographed wearing the Patek Philippe Nautilus Tiffany Blue, reference 5711/1A-018. A watch whose production run was limited to 170 pieces released exclusively through Tiffany & Company boutiques in late 2021. The retail price was $52,635. That number became irrelevant within 72 hours of the release. The secondary market price reached $6.5 million at auction within days, a markup of over 12,000%, driven by the convergence of two of the most powerful luxury brands in the world, a production run so limited it barely registered statistically, and the collector community's understanding that the reference 5711 had already been discontinued by Patek Philippe earlier that same year, making the Tiffany edition not just rare, but structurally unrepeatable. Jay-Z and Beyoncé were Tiffany ambassadors at the time, which explains his access to one of the 170 examples produced, while the broader collector market was attempting to understand how to obtain one at any price and largely failing. He was photographed wearing it courtside at an NBA game in early 2022, weeks after the release, wearing a $6.5 million watch to a basketball game the way another person might wear their daily driver to a casual outing. He has also been seen wearing the Patek Philippe Nautilus chronograph in rose gold, reference 5980R-001, which trades between $130,000 and $170,000 on the secondary market. The rose gold case paired with a blue dial in the Nautilus's signature horizontal pattern, the chronograph function displayed through a single subdial that contains both the minute counter and the seconds hand in a layout that Patek developed specifically to preserve the dial's visual clarity. He wore the Patek Philippe Sky Moon Tourbillon 6002R, a watch with 12 complications including a celestial chart displaying the night sky over a chosen city on the reverse dial, estimated at approximately $5.5 million, to LeBron James's 39th birthday party in Hollywood. He appeared at the 66th Grammy Awards in 2025 wearing the Patek Philippe Grand Complication 5304-301R in rose gold, a perpetual calendar set with dozens of hand-selected diamonds across the case and dial, retailing at over $1 million. At the Louis Vuitton Men's Fashion Show performance in Paris in 2023, he wore the Patek Philippe chronograph reference 5071G in 18-karat white gold with a blue sunburst dial set with 9 brilliant cut diamonds and 1 baguette cut diamond, a piece from Patek's Complications catalog that sits quietly between the commercial sports watches and the Grand Complications, known primarily within the collector community rather than to the broader public. He has also been photographed courtside at an Atlanta Hawks game in April 2022, wearing the Patek Philippe World Time New York edition, released in 2017 to commemorate the Art of Watches Grand Exhibition held in New York, featuring a central dial with a New York skyline pattern inspired by the original World Time architecture, developed by Louis Cartier in the 1930s. Each of these appearances is documented in photographs. Each watch was identified, priced, and discussed in detail by the collector community within hours of the images appearing publicly. The Patek Philippe section of his collection alone, at documented market values, represents more than $20 million in mechanical horology worn to basketball games, birthday parties, award ceremonies, and fashion shows. The Richard Mille portfolio sits alongside the Patek in a completely different register, where the Patek Philippe pieces represent the deepest tradition of Swiss watchmaking, the accumulated knowledge of nearly 2 centuries of manufacture in Geneva. The Richard Mille pieces represent the newest and most technically aggressive design language in contemporary horology. Richard Mille founded his eponymous brand in 2001. He came from a background in movement supply and brand management, not from watchmaking itself, and he approached the problem of the luxury watch from the position of someone who had spent years inside the industry observing what it consistently refused to change. His answer was to change everything simultaneously: materials from aerospace, grade 5 titanium, NTPT carbon, forged carbon, quartz TPT, and sapphire crystal machined into full three-dimensional cases. Movement architectures derive from Formula One engineering, with components designed to tolerate the gravitational forces experienced by racing drivers and tennis players at the extremes of physical performance. Prices that begin at $50,000 and climb into the millions for a brand that has existed for less than 25 years. Traditional collectors question whether the price reflects watchmaking or materials science and marketing. The collectors who have embraced Richard Mille argue that the brand is doing something genuinely new, in materials no established house would attempt, at a pace of development that the 2-century-old manufacturers cannot match without restructuring everything they are. Jay-Z has been photographed wearing the Richard Mille RM56-01 Tourbillon Sapphire, a watch whose case, bridges, and base plate are machined entirely from solid sapphire crystal, one of the hardest materials on Earth after diamond, in a process that requires cutting tools that themselves wear down progressively during the machining of a single component, meaning that the tools must be monitored and replaced mid-process to maintain the tolerances the design requires. The transparency of sapphire means that the entire movement is visible simultaneously from every angle, front, back, and sides, with no visual obstruction anywhere in the construction. The dial, which in a conventional watch would obscure the movement from the front, is itself sapphire, so thin that it functions as a window rather than a surface. The piece retails at approximately $3 million in standard configuration. Jay-Z's example has been customized in green sapphire, a commission arranged through the jeweler and watch customizer Alex Todd, who works with a roster of A-list clients, and described the piece as a unique commission estimated at well above $3 million, with some accounts placing it closer to a value of $4 million when the customization and rarity are accounted for. He has also been seen wearing the Richard Mille RM56 Custom Blueprint, another unique commission from the same source, described publicly at an estimated value of $2.5 million. The Richard Mille RM011 Felipe Massa in rose gold, a flyback chronograph with an annual calendar, a 60-minute countdown timer, and a function selector inherited from the brand's Formula One timing partnerships, named after the Brazilian Formula One driver who wore it in competition, has been photographed on his wrist at multiple public events. It trades at approximately $260,000 on the gray market, against a retail of around $130,000, a doubling of value on the open market, driven entirely by demand exceeding the brand's deliberately constrained production. In 2011, Jay-Z rapped the line "New Watch Alert, Hublot" in the song Otis, a track produced with Kanye West for their collaborative album Watch the Throne. The line was not subtle. It was a declaration of brand allegiance delivered to an audience of millions at a moment when Hublot was actively building its cultural presence through celebrity relationships, and it functioned as effectively as any advertising campaign the brand's marketing department could have designed. Hublot's chairman, Jean-Claude Biver, who transformed the brand from a struggling independent into one of the most commercially successful watch companies in the world through a combination of unconventional design and aggressive celebrity placement, understood what that single lyric was worth. The following year, 2012, Beyoncé gave Jay-Z a birthday present that Hublot's communications team described in their official press materials as a world first. The Hublot Big Bang $5 million watch, named with a directness that the luxury industry rarely permits itself, was an 18-karat white gold case set with 1,282 diamonds, selected individually over more than a year by Hublot's stone procurement team to match in color, clarity, and finish, each one resized individually to fit the precise geometry of its position in the case, dial, or bracelet. The case itself contained 302 baguette diamonds. The dial was 18-karat white gold set with 179 baguette diamonds across its surface. The bracelet alone contained 782 baguette diamonds totaling 45 carats in weight, with 6 square emerald-cut diamonds each over 3 carats set into the clasp, contributing more than 18 additional carats to the total stone count. The movement inside was Hublot's Hub 1100 self-winding mechanical caliber, beating at 28,800 vibrations per hour, visible through the sapphire case back behind the diamond set case. The total assembly process took 14 months. The sourcing of the stones took longer than the watchmaking. The price was $5 million. Beyoncé paid it as a birthday gift for a man who, by that point, could have paid it himself without noticing the transaction. The following year, Jay-Z collaborated with Hublot directly on a signature collection, the Sean Carter Hublot Classic Fusion, released in yellow gold, priced at $33,900, and black ceramic priced at $17,900 in a total edition of 350 pieces. He has not worn the Sean Carter edition in public with any documented frequency. He wears the $5 million one Beyoncé gave him. The Audemars Piguet presence in the collection reflects a specific historical and aesthetic literacy that extends beyond the obvious choice of a steel royal oak in the most commercially popular configuration. Jay-Z has been photographed wearing the Royal Oak Reference 2559 4ST, a piece associated with the artist Yves Klein and the International Klein Blue, the specific synthetic ultramarine that Klein developed, patented, and made the defining visual language of his practice. The dial of that Royal Oak reference is finished in a color that directly references one of the most significant colorists in 20th century art. The choice of that reference, rather than a standard blue dial Royal Oak in any of the more commercially familiar configurations, reflects the kind of knowledge that distinguishes a collector from a buyer. He has worn the Royal Oak offshore in multiple configurations at public events across his career, and has referenced Audemars Piguet throughout a 30-year music catalog that functions, when read chronologically, as a documented public record of his developing relationship with horology across different eras of cultural and financial context. The Jacob & Combe 5-time zone piece has appeared on his wrist at events across his career and represents a different chapter of the collection's development. Jacob & Co., founded by Jacob Arabeau in New York's Diamond District, operates at the intersection of haute joaillerie and watchmaking with a design vocabulary drawn from the specific visual language of New York luxury in the late 1990s and early 2000s, the era in which Jay-Z was consolidating his position in the industry. The 5-time zone displays 5 simultaneous time zones across a wide case, a functional complication, and a visual statement simultaneously. At the level where Jay-Z now collects, it is not the most mechanically significant piece he owns, but it represents the period when the collection was beginning to form, before the Grandmaster Chime and the Sapphire Richard Mille, when the vocabulary of success was being established rather than refined. The trajectory from the Jacob & Combe to the Patek 6300G is the trajectory of a man educating himself in real time, in public, over 20 years. Here is what the total picture looks like when you read the collection as a single document rather than a series of individual acquisitions. The Patek Philippe Grandmaster Chime at $2.2 million. The Tiffany Blue Nautilus at secondary market value of $6.5 million, the Sky Moon Tourbillon at $5.5 million, the Grand Complication 5304-301R at over $1 million, the Nautilus Chronograph in rose gold at $150,000, the World Time New York edition at secondary market premium. The Richard Mille RM 56-01 Tourbillon Green Sapphire Custom at $3 to $4 million. The Richard Mille RM 56 Blueprint at $2.5 million. The Richard Mille RM 011 Felipe Massa at $260,000. The Hublot Big Bang at $5 million. The Royal Oak Reference 25594 ST and multiple offshore configurations. The Patek Philippe Chronograph 5071G and the multiple other Nautilus and complications references photographed at events across a decade. A one-of-one vintage Rolex whose configuration and value have not been publicly estimated. The conservative documented total of this collection runs well past $30 million. The actual total, accounting for pieces not publicly photographed, private acquisitions, and custom commissions whose pricing is not disclosed in any public record, is almost certainly twice that figure. What makes this collection different from every other celebrity watch portfolio assembled at this price level is not the money. Bernard Arnault commands more financial resources. The Sultan of Brunei owns more watches than Jay-Z has documented pieces by a factor of hundreds. What makes it different is the evidence of genuine sustained study. Jay-Z does not wear the most famous watches, he wears the most significant ones. He wears the ones that the horological community has spent years analyzing, the ones whose movement architecture represents documented technical achievement, the ones whose production numbers make them genuinely difficult to acquire, regardless of the size of the check presented. The Grandmaster chime is not recognizable to people who have not read about watchmaking. The Tiffany Nautilus is not famous to people who were not following the secondary market in the weeks after its release. The RM56-01 in green sapphire is not known to anyone who has not spent time understanding why machining solid sapphire crystal represents a manufacturing challenge of a completely different order from anything else in contemporary watchmaking. Each piece in the collection was chosen by someone who understood what it represented before it arrived on his wrist. That is not what most people do with $30 million of discretionary luxury spending. That is what a person does who started studying a subject seriously and never stopped. The collection is the education made visible, worn in public, documented in photographs, at basketball games and birthday parties and award ceremonies over 2 decades, on the wrist of a man who grew up in Marcy houses and ended up owning the most complicated watch Patek Philippe has ever made. He rapped that time is money once in 1997. He has been proving it on his left wrist every year since.